I just want to say that we have a good number. This was such an important event for us. We have a good number of our board from the U.S. here. And we have our executive director, I'll introduce in a minute. Katie Lace is our program associate. We have Abby Rampone, Kelly Doss, Bob Shine, and I think Beth didn't make it here yet, but she's here, and myself, all here to participate and to, as you may know from yesterday, cause a little trouble. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our executive director, Kate McElwee, and ask her to introduce the afternoon's events. Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you all for coming to our discussion, Discerning Women, Voices Outside the Synod. Today is the feast of St. Francis, and so we especially remember his relationship with Clare and how he empowered her as his equal. This discussion is meant to accompany the Synod on Youth and Vocation. While the Worldwide College of Bishops gathers in a room with little to no representation from half of the Church, we offer this alternative space in which we can discuss openly, honestly, and faithfully the ways that young women strive to claim meaningful space in the Church, and how the Church can be invited to greater inclusion of women in decision-making, leadership, and sacramental roles. The young people who participated in the creation of the pre-synodal document showed that at the heart of our work, we must be centered upon inclusion, impactful engagement, and accompaniment. Our conversation will carry these themes forward as we offer a space for our panelists to bring their voices, their experiences, and their votes that are missing from the Synod Hall. A group of men are gathering behind closed doors, and this is no way to talk about the next generation of our Church. We are here to challenge the closed-door session of the Synod where women's voices, vocations, and votes will be marginalized or absent. 10% of the women present have no vote. Yesterday, Pope Francis told the Synod bishops, "Hope challenges us, moves us, and shatters the conformism which says it's always been done this way." He urged them to listen sincerely and prayerfully and as free as possible from prejudice and conditioning. We may be across the street, but I hope they can hear the voices of us today. So I'm so excited to introduce our dynamic panel here. We have a very international group, and their bios are listed in the form that you picked up on your way in. So I'm going to have Zuzanna Radzik who's going to begin our discussion. Thanks, Zuzanna.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for having us, for having me today. I wanted to start with sharing a dream. Forgive me those who've heard it already. But after yesterday, the weakness that in front of the Synod, we are all excited and tired, and I wanted to have a long sleep. Didn't set an alarm clock, but I woke up at 7, irritated. Irritated because what I dreamt was that I'm in my parish church, and I'm walking with other people to receive communion. And Kasia, who sits there, is in front of me. Somehow she doesn't attend my parish church. Me neither, but we're there somehow. So I guess it indicates the relationship to the demonstration yesterday. And just after her, when I approach the priest, he says, "Oh, we don't have time." No. And it's me and 3 other guys, the 2 other guys behind me, and I say, "What do you mean? Like, you're joking? It's only 3 of us. We have time. I mean, how we don't have time for that?" He's like, no, we don't have time. We have to rush. The time is over." And he doesn't want to give us communion. So I turned my back to the church and I said, "Have you seen what just happened?" And everyone is silent. And I woke up very quickly. At 7 I couldn't go to sleep again. But I think it's I'm not going to read dreams for you. That's not an intention. But I think it says a lot about the context I'm coming from. So a Polish Catholic Church, and I was sharing it a little bit with the Catholic Women Speak Conference on Monday. Maybe slightly differently. A Polish Catholic Church that it's very strong still. Poland is a Catholic country of 90+% of baptized Catholics. 40-something% of those of the society are practicing in the Catholic Church at least once a year. in many regions, people practice 60% of people go every Sunday. In the lowest rate will be 20 every Sunday, so or like some lower percentage maybe in the cities. So it's still pretty dominantly Catholic country, but with a light, with a baptized, we are supposed to say, not lay people, but baptized, all the other baptized being very passive. And I often say that we are clients of our church. I mean, we come there, we receive sacraments, we receive all kinds of needs that we have in terms of family rituals, and we criticize the church behind, or we gossip about it. And we are also traditionally Catholic and traditionally anti-clerical, but this being anti-clerical does nothing active. You can have all kinds of guesses why. It may be why we are post-communist country, and that experience usually teaches societies not to be very active. Civil activity is not high in those places. Self-organization is not very high. We are still coming out from that kind of stage. But it is very passive church in terms of how people receive. As I said, they will gossip, they will talk things, but they will never confront. And confronting, it's like far beyond what we do. So even right now, when we were, yesterday quite obsessively posting, and during this week posting and trying to raise awareness, and me being myself journalist but not being able to report about what I do, so like in this double role, trying to do it through social media a little bit, which I usually don't use professionally. And I could see that people noticed, and one of the reactions was like, "Whoa, you can actually do that. You can actually go and protest. You can actually have a conference. You can actually have women's voices gathered. You can actually have a voice." This is something that that was my process probably that I went through researching and then kind of getting myself more active. And I had no idea that you can. When I met Jamie when I was writing my first book, and every day I was really excited about all those meetings, but that was like completely different world. I was on a wall meeting, steering committee meeting, but that was like blowing my mind because I could not, and I shared it recently in the newspaper. I said, look, I was there, I was going back from walking to the train, and every day I felt this is so weird, but it's the church. And I rarely meet people who are so involved. And so caring, and so I guess for everyone in the Polish church that will be a similar or even longer process to really accept that there's a way of being in the church, but being through a critical involvement. And in terms of the voices, I mean, I'm not going to explain you how they choose people for Synod, because that's the same everywhere, I guess. So the loyal people go. And I saw, after our witness yesterday, I saw a nice bishop from Poland who is attending the Synod, Bishop Grzegorz Ryś, posting a photo with this, young people that are also attending, and of course no troublemakers will be there, although he knows about our existence. But the problem is that there is also, we just have statistics that are not letting us being so sure about our, Catholic country being so Catholic. Pew Research Center had the statistics that we are probably I think the first among 108 countries in terms of how many young people drop the church. The generational change is huge. So from 20 years ago, how many young people were attending and were active, and for now, we are like avant-garde of the world, of the Catholic world. Surprisingly or not surprisingly, because we also have a very nice development of last 30 years, meaning religion classes in the public schools, which I myself call the most de-Christianizing, the tool to de-Christianize Poland. Bishops love it. I don't know how they don't see that it's really damaging religious life of most of the youth, because of the stupidity of what happens in those classrooms and because of all other issues there related to those classes. But that's a fact. I mean, we had religion classes for the last 30 years, and we just created a generation that is less practicing than anyone else. So among those, only those active, those left, still in the church, may be considered to be invited for the synod, right? The voices of those who are not, who dropped for some reason, will never be. So that's one of the things. And the same happens to women. There was a research 2 or 3 years ago about attendance, religious practices, and surprisingly, because usually women are leading in those statistics, but in Poland in the last 20 years, the biggest drop was among women, more than the men. And we tried to make it noticed, so a couple of us wrote about it, but other than that, I don't think that it's reflected in any church activity or more awareness of anyone. Why, actually, in the last 20 years we lost that many women? What happened in the society? I mean, the society tremendously changed, and church didn't at all. Like, it's really not shifting much, and every shift is considered as some Western influence that is bad for us. Even our religious women are saying that they are not going to change as the Western religious women did, because look what happened to them. Meaning, I don't know, lack of vocations. They don't have vocations themselves. And every time you are challenging them why young women are not choosing religious life, they will say that it's a hedonistic world that attracts them more. They never ask maybe that the reasons to leave the world are not that serious if you offer only working in the kitchen, and in the series you do mostly that. So that's really hard to give up your life and follow this kind of path. So you won't also hear those women who are sometimes really trying to take upon themselves religious life's path, but then they drop very quickly. I had a friend who joined a religious congregation, and after 2 months she was. Their group of novitiate sisters was asked to take a place of the little bit older ones who were going for retreat, and she found herself in the kitchen in a Jesuit convent in which our school, the school that she graduated, is in the building. And she said, I realized that if I'll be back here, I'll be only back in the kitchen, and that was the moment she dropped. So it goes on and on, all those voices, and just to finish up this first entry. When I started to speak up about those women's issues, a lot of people said like, oh yeah, that's your perspective, like you live in the big city, no one thinks this way. Women don't have those problems in Poland. And I wasn't sure myself if they do or not. I knew I have those problems, and I wanted to kind of count how many people do. And then I started to receive letters from most surprising places. Messages on Facebook, messages on the emails, but sometimes even on one meeting I got a letter in the envelope, and an envelope said, I read it later, I knew that there would be no time, but me and other ladies who are in their 60s, in the parish nearby Warsaw, we were discussing what bothers us, and here's the list, 8 pages of a handwritten letter. And they were explaining at the end, if that doesn't change, there will be no other 60+ women in the church ever, because we are the last generation who will suffer through it. And no others will volunteer for that. There was a lady from a village nearby Kielce, so it's already outside of the central Poland, and she was saying, oh my God, I read about those women's ordination, I think that's too far for me. But you know what? I even struggle with the concept of being older girl. And she was very much adult, and she said that in my religious movement, I come half an hour before the boys come, and I put the cloth on the altar. And that's my thing. And I realized that actually that's what I was craving for my whole life, to be able to be there rightfully. So that on and on and on and on. So suddenly when you speak up, all those women start to show up, and they are there. So those voices could be heard, could be invited, could be gathered somehow. But they're always overlooked. Also, and that's the last thing I want to say for now, is that they themselves don't give themselves right to be a voice within the church. Whenever their voice is slightly different than what is accepted. Even after some process, we've been meeting for 3 years with a group of women in Warsaw, and if you push them for the public action, they still feel that because of their life situations that are diverse, sometimes difficult, they have no right to say what they would love to change. So even on that level, they feel that their voice will never count, and they have no right to even start to say it. So So it's not only that they're not, they themselves need a lot of encouragement to be able to speak up before they even get to be heard somewhere in any place like the Synod.
Okay, now we'll hear from Paola Lazzarini from Donne per la Chiesa.
Nice to meet you all. It's a great joy to be here with you to breathe the fresh air of a young, lively, walking church. I must apologize if I read, but my English is not that good. I am Paola Lazzarini. I represent Women for the Church, a new group born about a year ago, when 40 women from different parts of Italy met thanks to the social media and wrote together our manifesto. After the publication, for the resonance that has had, many local groups started, and currently there are active groups of women of the Church in Rome, Milano, Torino, Napoli, Genova, Cagliari, Catanzaro, and Lugano in the Italian Switzerland. In these groups we do training, sharing, and advocacy. What is perhaps useful to remember here in an international assembly like this is that in Italy there has never been feminine awareness in the base. We have excellent theologians, small advanced group of believers, but most of the women who attend the parishes, associations, and ecclesial movements have never expressed critical positions, at least not in an organized way. The reason for this is that in the Italian imagination there is still the Catholic woman as mother, wife, angel of the heart, and this image is carried forward by successful writers also today. Today even more than a couple of decades ago. It's not easy in Italy to say that women must be assertive, that we shall have no fear to speak clearly and to ask for positions of responsibility in Christian communities. We are immediately labeled as aggressive, noisance, or worse, feminist, a dirty word. Yet something is changing, and I can measure it by traveling Italy in our newborn groups. I discovered that problems and sufferings are common. Italian women are tired of keeping pastoral care, charity, training, and being systematically out of the room in which decisions are made. Things are changing, and the success of our initiative brings evidence to this. This is the premise to say that you must not feel stranger in this city of Rome. Even here, there are women who are starting to express their impatience and their will to speak. And some are also here today. Now, coming to the topic of our meeting, I must say that my feeling is to live a time when things that seem to be more solid crumble under our eyes day after day. The news of abuse growing as a way committed by clerics and even bishops all around the globe have undermined not only the institutional church, but our very own idea of church. At the same time, we have under our eyes the power games, the pettiness, and the pitfalls that the ecclesiastical hierarchy hosts, even at its highest levels. I am convinced that in reality, this is a time of particular grace, a Good Friday that we can travel with faith in Easter, with your clock tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, willing to do our part, whether small or big, to rebuild on rubble. And it's clear, undeniable, that this Easter will be announced once again by a woman, by women, and that it will be a woman to bring the announcement to Peter, not vice versa. This is why I do not look forward to this synod with great confidence. With the exhortation Episcopalis Communio, the final document can become a magisterium, one more reason to be discouraged by the fact that the invited women will not be able to vote for it. Although pervaded by good intentions, I do not see a real news there, and I expect nothing decisive. But this is also good news. The Synod on Young People is taking place in Vatican. The Synod of Young People takes place every time young believers are together to pray, to serve the poor, to help catechism for the little ones. So, as adult women, I am a mother, I cannot identify with you. What can we offer to young people, and especially to young women? At stake is our responsibility to convey not only faith, but also an idea of the Church. Young people especially ask us to accompany them. It emerges in the Instrumentum Laboris, but it's a common experience. They need adults that will be next to them and help them to discern in these uncertain times their vocation in the Church and in the world. This is where I feel urgent to be. Of course, young people can and must be protagonists, proactive, but I do think we have a special responsibility. Betrayed by abusive fathers, they must not be betrayed even by the silence of us, mothers. In the Instrumentum Laboris, we can read, the answer to the online questionnaire show how mothers are the preferred reference persons for young people, whereas a reflection is needed regarding fathers was absence or evanescence in certain contexts, especially in Western countries, generates ambiguity and vacuums that also affect the exercise of spiritual fatherhood. So, young people tell that mothers are the reference in the life, but mothers are not in the Synod. It is up to us, women, who have found the strength to pose ourselves as interlocutors, to support them and help them find their place in the Church, make them feel that it's their home, and that no one has the right to make them feel inadequate or wrong. Their battles must be our battles. Young people are ashamed of a church hostile to LGBT people. We must be ashamed as well of that and be the first one to fight. Young people find no nourishment in a church that forgets the gospel and promotes moralism. We must be transmitters of the word of God. Call priests to proclaim the gospel rather than focus on sin, but we must offer ourselves the bread of the word. That is something that no one can stop us from doing. Young women want to feel that their vocation, their spiritual life, is as good as that of their male peers. We, adult women, must be with them and be ready to defend them as Mama Bear when someone dare, as they did with us when we were in our 20s, to diminish their desire or call them visionaries because they are called to the priesthood. Here I see the priorities for young people, which are the priorities of the Church of the future. An egalitarian church, a church that puts the gospel at the center, an inclusive church. I'm sure that the male hierarchy will not create the conditions for young people to find what they are looking for. We will do it if we will be able to break the patterns, also in alliance with all men of goodwill who, it must be said, exist among priests and baptized Catholics. I may have other things to do, but I prefer for now to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Paola. Jacqueline Straub.
The essential value of women is in the ability to give birth and in their domestic utility. This sentence by Thomas of Aquino has gone out of fashion in the meantime, luckily. Women have today many possibilities to create their own lifestyle, to choose a job they want to. As a woman in the Catholic Church, I can actually become and do a lot. In Germany or Switzerland, Austria, I can do a lot. However, I cannot do what I want to feel to you. Since I was a teenager, I have wanted to become a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. I feel to have a vocation. My heart wants to celebrate the Holy Eucharist. I want to serve God and the people as a priest, not as a nun or as a mother or as a wife. My journey of faith began at the age of 15, when I visited a Christian camp for young people with a friend of mine. I felt God has called me. The desire to become a priest has grown in the recent years. 1.5 years after my confirmation, I was 17 years old then, I took all my courage, and after long considerations, I decided to become an altar server. Through the service at the altar, my love for the church and my desire to walk as a priest became stronger and stronger. I wanted to do what the priests in my parish did: preaching, celebrating sacraments, and walking in the parish. I strongly feel that God has called me to become a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. Such a vocation is not merely a gut feeling and is not limited to one single moment in time. A vocation is also a personal moment with God. Rather, it is a slow process where again and again you feel that you are being called. Sometimes that is even scary because you don't know if you are up to the task. At first, you experience again and again a feeling that tells you to say yes to the priestly call. Nevertheless, I knew in the Catholic Church it's not possible to be a priest, to be a legal priest, not yet. I did not want to convert because the Catholic Church is my home, my family. Therefore, I decided to fight for my dreams. I have studied Roman Catholic theology at 3 universities, 1 in Germany and 2 in Switzerland. A lot of time I had here that women cannot be priests. I've heard so much abstruse arguments. Women are too weak for the priesthood. Last week, a young lady, she also studied theology, she wrote to me that women are too weak, they are depressed or something like this. They can't do this. A man told me, "Oh, Jesus was a man, you are a woman." No problem. No, it's not possible. And another man told me, "Oh, if Jesus wanted to have priests in the Roman Catholic Church, maybe he would say it, but in the Bible it's not written that he wants to have women priests." Even if the church would ordain a woman as a priest, the ordination would roll off the women. This said a Polish priest. I also heard because the Holy Spirit cannot enter into a woman. But I think we are all Baptists, so I don't know. And the really craziest stuff I ever heard was women cannot be called to be a priest because God don't want this. A professor at the university told me, "You are a woman, you can give birth. That's why God gave me the priesthood." Okay. To this day, the Catholic Church says that women priests are not allowed and not possible. The canon law states that only a baptized man can be ordained. This is a discrimination. I cannot be ordained simply because I am a woman. The Catholic Church does not consider it its duty to examine my vocation. It is a violation of the fundamental equality of all the faithful on the basis of baptism as enshrined in the Constitution of the Second Vatican Council. It is tragic that 50 years after the Second Vatican Council, gender is still rated higher than baptism. It is a misbalancing. Baptism is hardly taken seriously in its sacramental impact. Baptism must be given the way it deserves. Gender must not be important, but only the willingness to place oneself at the service of Jesus Christ and His Church. 7 years ago, I publicly expressed my dream for the first time. At this time, I was just at the beginning of my theology studies. Pope Benedict XVI was in Germany, and I had the possibility to publish a contribution in a book for the Pope. In it I wrote, "I would so much like to become a priest in the Catholic Church. I would like to live and carry out this vocation with the greatest conviction and all my love for God and for the Church. My greatest wish would come true if this possibility were offered to me." When I wrote this, I thought I am the only woman in the Church who want to be a priest. But fast I realized that there are many women in the Church, in the whole Church, who want to be a priest. Since 7 years, I've been giving interviews and speeches, sitting in talk shows, writing articles and books about it. I raise my voice again and again for the women's priesthood, for my dream, for my vocation, for the vocation of all the women outside, for equality in the Catholic Church. I raise my voice for the Spirit of Jesus Christ. I spare no effort to fight for my dreams, even if that means that I have thereby obstructed a career in the Church, because not everyone likes that I talk about the women's priesthood. A professor at the university in Freiburg in Germany told me to search another job opportunity after I spoke about my call in one of the biggest talk shows in the German television. He said to protect me, and in the future he wants to see women priests, that a job in journalism or in the economy is safer for me and for my fight for equality. Today I'm working as a journalist in Switzerland. If you want to change something, it is important to have enough arguments up your sleeve, because versions always include the confrontation with those who don't like it, or who don't like it yet. I'm not afraid to discuss with bishops on television, as long as they are willing to talk to me. I had a lot of situations that the bishops don't want to talk to me and canceled the talk show. I get a lot of support for my commitment, but also rejection. I have already received emails in which I was insulted and was advised to strive for, quote, the ideal of the faithful and caring wife and the sacrificing mother, because this is my destiny from God. It's not always a piece of cake when you make your dreams public and stand up for change. However, it is worth it, because without the many women and men before us, we would not be where we are today. Women's suffrage, education for all, career opportunities. We owe it to strong personalities, to strong women, in society and in church. I also feel obliged to do something for the future generation, to stand up for them and for all of us. For me, Mary Magdalene is a great role model for my commitment for the women's priesthood. She did something that she was not allowed to do in society at this time, namely to speak in public. She was courageous because she placed her faith in God, her versions higher than man-made rules. She was a rebel. And I think it takes rebellious people to achieve change. She had not been so rebellious towards patriarchal society. She would have remained silent and told no one about the resurrected Christ. The friends of Jesus would have sadly returned to their villages, and Jesus, no one would know him today. There would be no Christianity. I wish us all that we may become a Mary Magdalene, strong, courageous, self-confident. I wish the Church to consider us women as equal and to grant women and men the same opportunities and rights. In my new book, Kick die Kirche aus dem Koma, in English, Kicks the Church out of the Coma, I'm a boxer too. I write about the young people in the Church. In it I write, without young people, no future for the Church. At the same time, I can say, without women, no future for the Church. In theory, equality is being preached. Equality is written in the Bible and in church documents from the Second Vatican Council, like Lumen Gentium or Gaudium et Spes. In Lumen Gentium, number 29, you can read, nevertheless, with respect of the fundamental rights of the person, every type of discrimination based on sex is to be overcome and eradicated as contrary to God's intent. In the canon law of the Catholic Church is written, there exists among all the Christian faithful a true equality. In practice, it is easy to see that there is a long way to go towards its realization. The goal is not yet within sight. Surely, there will be a lean period and further obstacles ahead, but I will go this way. I won't give up. However, so far my faith has given me the strength to take this way, even though not everyone likes to see me on this road, but it's my path and I will follow it to the end. I'm being inconvenient to certain people so that I will be able to live my vocation within the Roman Catholic Church in the future. I will not hesitate or stop when I'm faced with the opposition of reactionary bishops or conservative believers. I shall proceed on my way in complete awareness with full power and with determination of my vocation. When females feel called to the priesthood, they should not deny God's call. There is no need for women to hide. God has given us all a voice for speaking out, and we should speak clearly and courageously, as Jesus Christ did. We know that the call comes from God. It is wrong to say that the vocation and the ordination of the man is valid, and the vocation and the ordination of man is not valid. I will wait, hope and pray that the Holy Spirit will blow into our church today. And I hope that the Catholic Church will recognize the signs of the time. If I and many other women could walk as priests in the Roman Catholic Church, it wouldn't be a break with tradition, but rather listening to the Holy Spirit. Because St. Paul already said, there is no Jews or Greek, servant or free, male or female, because we are all one in Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And now we'll finish with J.D. Manson, and then we'll have time for questions and discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Like Jacqueline, I too was called to the priesthood in my early teens. And so I guess I've been a discerning woman nearly for 30 years, which is very scary. I don't know what's taking me so long to figure this out. Some of you, many of you were part of a very dramatic event yesterday, just steps away from St. Peter's Square, in which we, a group of us went to witness peacefully asking the Synod Fathers for women to have a vote at this synod. And what more important time could there be than a synod on youth, a synod on the future of the church, to invite more than half the church in to have some kind of a vote, a voice and a vote. And many of you know that we were allowed to chant and to say what we needed to say for quite a while, maybe 15, 20 minutes. But when the police came in to stop us, their reaction was swift and severe. And I'm struck now, almost 24 hours later, by the analogies I'm seeing. Well, first of all, I'm struck by I'm outraged, given the climate around clerical sex abuse, given the climate around the abuse of women, that they called the police on us, but no clergy abuser ever has the police called on him. They never call the police. You rape a child or a woman, and as a clergy person or a bishop, no one calls the police. That's so much of what our fight is for justice for sex abuse victims or victims of sexual violence. Call the police. That's really what we want. And yet we had the police called on us. And it was a reminder again to me of how frightening women are to this clergy. The fear of female power. We talk about misogyny a lot, the hatred of women. But what's really going on here is gynophobia. Fear of women, fear of female power. And I'm very, very struck by what we endured with the police, which was hypermasculinity, machismo, intimidation, all of these things. The order to be silent. They kept repeating, be silent, silent. What they were saying, what they were acting out, is really what's going on inside the Synod and what's been going on inside of our church. That women are being forced to be silent because they are women. Because they are women. And this is a terribly tragic situation in our church. And the real tragedy is it's the Catholic Church's theology that keeps reinforcing this idea that women are not entitled to have a voice, that women are not entitled to lead. It's a new theological idea, but it has somehow become dogma in the minds of our church leaders. This idea of complementarity, this theology of the body, that it is part of God's very design that women cannot lead, that women must be receivers, that women must be nurturers, that it is unnatural for a woman to lead, that it is unnatural for a woman to take initiative, that is against God's plan for humanity, for a woman to be a priest. And with that comes all of that shame, because you're unnatural. You're working against God's very plan for humanity. This is this predominant theology that keeps getting pushed on us as the reason why women cannot be priests. It's against nature. It's against God's vision. And so when you see men reacting in this very violent, very hyper-masculine, silencing way, that is in many ways the product of this theology, right? That how dare you speak? How dare you transgress the laws of nature? What you're doing is wrong, right? And so it's a very sad thing. It's a very tragic thing because the issue of women's leadership is as urgent as it's ever been. We have a desperate need for the best priests we can possibly get. There are many feminist Catholics who think that we have to do away with the priesthood completely. I actually don't agree with that. I actually think we need priests. And one of the episodes that I experienced that really drove that home was several years ago. We had a horrible tragedy in America. We had a terrible, devastating mass shooting at a school in Connecticut called Sandy Hook. And it for me, as a New Yorker, it felt like another 9/11. And what I remember so clearly was that everyone didn't run to the police, they ran to the church. They ran to their priests. And their priests, because Connecticut, like New York, is very Catholic, there was a priest that had to do 13 funerals, mostly of small children, after that absolute tragedy. We need priests, and we need the best. We need the best among us, the most gifted, the most compassionate, the most capable of presence. That's what we need for our church. And the real tragedy here to me is that, at least in the United States, and I'm sure this is true across the world, I know it's true, is that seminaries and theological schools are bursting with women. We have schools in the United States, Boston College, Jesuit School of Theology, Georgetown, Fordham University in New York, you name it. They're packed with women who want Masters of Divinity, who want seminary degrees, who want to be leaders and servants in their churches. There is no lack of women desperate to work in these churches. And these women have no place to go. They get into terrible debt, because it's America, so you have to pay very high tuition. They get into very terrible debt. And they have all these gifts and all this desire and all this drive and this charisma and this education, this massive education. And they have nowhere to go. They have no place to turn to. Their parishes don't want them. You know? There's very few jobs, and they have all these gifts to bring to the church. And in many cases, these women are in fact shamed. They're told they're being clerical. Oh, you want to be a priest, you're being clerical. You want honors and you want status. This is a very, very pernicious thing that's being done now to women who feel called or bold enough to say they feel called to be a priest. They're being told, you want to be clerical. You want honors. You want status in this church. And I hear women saying that about other women. I hear women who are progressive saying it about other women at progressive women's events. That's how pernicious it is. We shame women for wanting to lead in their church. We shame women for having gifts and taking ownership of them. Why? When a young man says he wants to be a priest, everyone faints out of joy. Oh, how beautiful. Oh, he wants to be a priest. Oh, you just give this guy the benefit of the doubt. No one says, oh, I wonder why he wants to do this. What's he really driving at, right? What's going on here? What is, what he wants, he wants power, clearly. No. A woman wants to be a priest, she wants power. That's what happens. So this is really the tragedy. And it's, again, because of our God-given anatomy. This is the thing. This is what God has given us, as God has created us, and we're told that God can't work through it. What are we saying about God when we say this? What are we saying? In 2010, the CDF, Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, put out a ruling saying that a woman who tries to work as a Catholic priest, tries to consecrate the Eucharist, is performing a delicta graviora, grave sin against the sacraments. And they used, in this same piece of paper, they said the same thing about men who sexually abuse children. They made them equal, that both were sins against the sacrament. What are we saying about God? What are we saying about women? What kind of fear, what kind of profound primal fear is at work here? That you accuse women of desecration for wanting to lead. It's profoundly, profoundly tragic. And it's tragic for a church. It's a sin against women, and it's a sin against God, really. Because the hierarchy is creating an obstacle between God and God's people. God and women, and all of the people who are so hungry and longing for ministry, for compassion, for sacraments, for healing. This is really, really what's going on here. And it's because of the bodies of women, that's why. Because the church is reducing women, because of their bodies, to this set of purposes, and men to this set of purposes. And that hurts women, and that hurts men. If you say men are only meant to lead and take initiative, well, that means men aren't allowed to be nurturing and compassionate, right? You're reducing men to their biological function or reality as you're doing that to women. So the bigger issue here is that this teaching that is keeping women from leadership is also keeping men from fully expressing themselves in their full humanity. Mm-hmm. So it's denying the whole of their experience as human beings. And most importantly, it's denying the deepest hopes of women. That's all I'll say for now. I'm eager to hear what everyone else has to say.
But I want to engage all of you here. So if you have a question for any of our panelists, please raise your hand, and you can start the question and answer that way. Okay, or I'll start. So this is for all of you, how do you explain why women are non-voting members of the Synod, and why non-ordained men are allowed to vote within the Synod? And what message does this send to young women today?
I'll just say something quickly because the microphone is in front of me. I think it's extraordinary because most young women today grew up having a voice. They grew up with social media. They grew up being able to have their own blog, their own channels, their own, unlimited ways of expressing themselves. And then they're supposed to somehow find loyalty and desire to be in a church that does not let them, that not only doesn't let them express themselves, tells them they don't have a voice and they have no power. So I can't think of anything that would clash more with the culture of young adults than this culture of hierarchical power, of patriarchal power. Should we keep moving? They can shout too.
Well, I don't know if that would be well received, but I was kind of happy that it happened because it actually unveils how unjust it is altogether. I mean, it's what we are correcting right now is still. Intention is not to change it much, right? I mean, it's a little shift, but still a little one. It's not rethinking synods as such. And frankly speaking, we've all probably, or many of us, read theologians from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, there are all those ways that people wrote numerous PhDs about how we could reform, change, include, laity. That's been going on for 40 years. So that actually this particular shift only created a spotlight that it is actually. I mean, it made it possible for the Polish media to notice that there is something wrong about the synod. I mean, I don't think most of them noticed that the synod started, and then suddenly they noticed that wow, actually that's a gender discrimination, because before it was so easy to say, what do you want? It's a Synod of Bishops. And using the argument that that some of the heads of the men congregation can take part, it wasn't so helpful or breaking people's image. But right now, if you say, that's particularly about women not being able, then people get it. And that's in our context, it starts a conversation in a better way. So I'm not saying it's a blessing. I'm not saying it was a good thing, but in many ways, I would want much more change about the synod. It's not only that the young women grew up with a voice and a way of speaking to the world with all kinds of means, but it's also that we live in the age, at least, I don't know, it's changing a lot now, but in terms of participating, our hunger for participation changed. I mean, seriously, we vote, I don't know how in the US, but in Europe we vote even in, we have participatory budgets in our neighborhoods and cities, so we even decide if we want to build that bench or that garden. We have a piece of money in the municipality to decide upon, and we vote if we want. So this is the age we are in, and yet we don't even get to vote who will represent us on the synod. Not to mention which bishop, but which baptized person. So there is much more wrong, and I think people see it more with that change. No? Yes. It's heavy. You have to decide.
Quello che mi colpisce è che non venga tenuto presente che questo renderà insignificante per molte giovani donne il risultato del sinodo. Is it clear? No.
I can't translate for you.
Okay. The problem is that it will make insignificant for most of young women the results of the synod. And they run this risk without even thinking about it. And that's what shocks me. And also they said that, as Zuzanna just said, it's the Synod of Bishops. There are many other places where women can talk, but where are these places? In a presbyteral commission, how do you call it? Presbyteral commission? Commissioni presbiterali? How do you? Consigli presbiterali, come si dice? Presbyteral council, of course there are no women. In the pastoral council, women are very few. So it's true that this is the Synod of Bishops, but there are no other places. So this is only the edge of the iceberg, but the iceberg is very, very big.
I get a lot of emails from young women and also young men them, they told me, I want to do something in the church, but I don't have a voice. I'm young and I'm a woman, so it's no possibility for me to do something. And then there are other women, they say to me, oh, it's okay like it is. It's good. The world outside is so confusing. The women have all the rights, all the possibility. We have to choose a job, we have to choose a man, we have to choose in which city we were living, which sport you want to do. We have to choose all. And some young women are today, they say it's too much. I like to have the Catholic Church. It's all have the structure. I don't have to decide. The men, they decide for me. The old men, they are not married. They decide for young women and men. And there are a lot of other people. They say, okay, I'm young, but I don't have interest in the church. So never mind. They can say what they want. If they say, okay, you are not allowed to have sex before marriage, I say, I have sex before marriage, and if you want or not. But I think it's a bad sign from the church that only the men, the old men, are decided. I think now it would be the possibility of the church to show to the world, to say we are open for the young. We are old men. We cannot decide something because the young people, they need it. And I wish that the women and the men, the young people, have a voice inside. But yeah, it's the church.
Does anyone in the audience want to ask a question of the panelists?
Yeah, I'm sorry I came a bit late, but I thank you for the presentation, and also for the others, and thank you, Katie. As I was sitting here, I was just thinking about 2 months ago, just as an example, the Methodist women called me, and they were supposed to be celebrating 40 years of the ordination of women, and they said, we have nothing to celebrate, and we are not going to be co-opted into a celebration where they only produced one bishop in the 40 years, a female bishop, and they just had the elections where all the 17 positions were all taken up by men. And so in our reflections together, we realized that even if we want to go there, that structure, that patriarchal structure, and it's, I don't know how it works, that has to be destroyed. Women should not get that clericalism, that patriarchy, that somehow, it self-perpetuates. So that even when women are ordained and they are under that, they are unable still to be free and to be women, and they find themselves boxed into that. And so going deeper to say, how do we dismantle this thing from the ground, so that as part of the, like the simultaneous dismantling of a system that has excluded women and that continues to exclude women, even when it opens the door to women, it's still excluding. So, yeah.
Thank you,
And you want us to know
Yes,
how?
please. Please get together.
I'll say something. Thank you. Yeah, this is a really tricky one, Notando, and I saw it a lot. I went to Yale Divinity School for my master's degree, so I was around 40 different kinds of Protestants, and most of them ordained women. All of them did, actually. Some didn't like it, but anyway. And it's very tricky, because I hear so many calls to just dismantle it, and I say to myself, my God, when the hell is that going to happen? I got to dismantle the church first before women are allowed to do anything? We're going to be waiting a very long time. And so I'm very, because of where I came from, I saw women, Protestant women, get really hurt by the system, And yet at the other side, I say, but how on earth? How long, oh Lord, must we wait? We got to wait for all of this to crumble, then we can do something. So I know this is controversial, but I'm of the opinion of adding women and stirring. I'm not going to lie. And I know, because I believe what Audre Lorde said about the master's tools, never being able to dismantle the master's house. I get it. I really get it. But at the same time, I think there are some very badass women that are fierce. I saw it yesterday, in fact. And I think that we can't be like women are too pure, they shouldn't be exposed to clericalism, they shouldn't be put into the cesspool system. And I feel like women are fierce. And if we get them in there, we educate them well, and we support one another, and we can give each other the strength to do it. You know, because I think it's just way too, I don't think it's ever going to crumble unless you get women in there. Support, but again, it's about education and it's about support. Because most women feel very alone in ministry. The burnout rate for my classmates was 5 years. All the young women that went into ministry, 5 years. So it's going to be hard, but I don't know of any other way but to get women in there and start to transform.
I wanted to ask if you're planning any other events during the Synod, if are you going to be here throughout the Synod? What are you? So I'll answer this completely about myself. I'm leaving tomorrow, so that was an exhausting week. We'll see, but I think it's a good idea to put it on their Facebooks and make it public. So I guess that what I'm planning to do, I'm planning to be back home, but to still keep pressure on people speaking about the fact that Synod works like that. It's actually a nice thing that Catholics learn. I mean, some of them learn that women are not voting, and they're not, I mean, they learn how it works because they never were interested. They just assume that it has to work a good way. So that's for me. And so quickly about dismantling. I actually, that's the second weakness that I'm saying that, it's really influenced me what Jamie said a couple of years ago. But I remember you saying that, it would be using privilege to set up your own community right now and do something. But it's such a, I mean, the dream that when Jamie said back then to me that it's so much about the Catholic world transforming into this agent of equality globally. And I keep thinking about it because that's such a dream. And it's worth the fight. And it's also, and I also agree that it will take and I don't want to see it collapse. I want to see it transform. I do believe that transformations are possible. I also do believe that we can think and dream leadership differently. And it's also a spirit of time. I mean, people are doing, there's now, right now in the business world, they're doing all this number of leadership trainings and teaching managers who were taught 30, 20 years ago that they should be tough managers, tough people who will lead and pump their leaders' ego. Right now, all those fancy Harvard professors from Kennedy School of Government will tell you that you should never want to be a leader. And that's the new trend, right? And you talk about something completely different. So you can think about, maybe at the same time using that kind of model of teaching leaders to not want to be egoistic leaders with their egos pumped. And you can do it at the same time. I mean, you can try to include women and also generally form leaders differently, because that's probably where the world is heading generally. And it may happen at the same time. I do believe that we could, we have this piece in the book of Catholic Women speak about dismantling seminaries, and that may be a good idea. I mean, in terms of the people that they create at the end, and Zettina saying that she saw so many people with vocations being, losing their faith and their dreams in the seminaries. That's something that we should deeply care about, and that move could also, create more space for a different kind of leadership being created in the church. So we should be much more creative than just saying that we should dismantle that and then see what happens.
So one of the other groups, that is excluded are LGBT Catholics, and working, being a supporter of sort of LGBT Catholics and of women called the priesthood, I have seen homophobia, transphobia in this community, and I have seen some real prejudices against women's leadership in the LGBT community. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts about what solidarity between these groups, and I realize there's sort of a Venn diagram where there's people who are both, but what does solidarity look like in terms of supporting one another's causes and also trying to work against some of the prejudices and stigmas? I'm thinking particularly trying to convince men who are in the LGBT community that women's leadership is an important issue that they should care about, because really the root cause, as Jamie touched upon, is this all comes down to complementarity. So if we're not working together, we're really not going to tackle the issue.
As I told before, to me, posso parlare italiano? Scusate, qualcuno mi aiuterà, ho fiducia. Questa dell'inclusione è veramente il centro, il cuore della questione, e l'inclusione delle donne e delle persone LGBT per me, come dire, sono due facce della stessa medaglia. Quindi quello che ora interessa a noi, un po' come dicevo nel mio intervento, la solidarietà debba essere, come dire, costruita però non sulla base dell'esclusione, ma sulla base dell'amore per la nostra Chiesa, che ci accomuna. Ecco, pensare che però le persone omosessuali possano vederci quasi come antagoniste, io non lo voglio credere. Io penso che quello che dobbiamo guardare è semplicemente il bene della Chiesa, e lo vogliamo, diciamo, entrambi. Quindi io sono molto fiduciosa, anzi io lo sento, e parlo un po' anche per il mio gruppo, lo sentiamo come una priorità, assolutamente non c'è nessuna contrapposizione.
Just quickly, again, highlighting the context, because I think we really come from different ones. So I got approached by the LGBT Catholic community in Poland after I published more about women. I guess they assumed that once you cross that line, you already, you can deal with all kinds of causes that are outside of the regular borders of orthodoxy, or the things that we discuss, let's say it this way. And that was and I assume also that and I was asked to come on a retreat and speak about women, and I prepared something that I assumed that they all get it. And then the girls who invited me were so upset, and they're like, seriously, we wanted you to push our cause. They are not seeing issues of equality so clearly. And the thing is that we are in a very Catholic Poland with the group that holds on to their Catholicism. And that was probably one of the most conservative liturgies that they had during this retreat that I've been on during the last years. I mean, everything was so like I was in the first communion, like the same songs even, really the same songs. But that shows you something. I mean, we could be, as a group in a very conservative Catholic country with no LGBT pastoral work being done, they do it to themselves. They take care of themselves, and it's still pretty. I mean, church-wise, they're a very conservative group, and they still want to stick inside. So I don't think that I will impose more expectations on them in our context in Poland. I'm still very much impressed because I always say that actually, after I've been twice doing the retreats for them, that's the only group of Catholics in Poland. Actually, I said that people are clients and they don't organize them. That's the only group I know that organize themselves with some precise cause that is not usually discussed. And I'm always saying, I will repeat it over and over, that we are all learning from them that we can actually do it because they were the first ones to do it. But I do agree, of course, that it's the same. I mean, it's two sides of the same coin, or the complementarity is the root. That's for sure. But in some situations like this one, I don't know if I would expect too much. I mean, that's the travel group in our case, and with a lot of issues there. But a lot of people also support women causes, and we have a mutual exchange. But I wouldn't expect too much from men in this group for now, because there's a lot on their plate.
I have a question about those who seek ordination outside of the official institutional structures of the Catholic Church, the Association of Catholic Women Priests, and other Catholic but not institutionally Roman Catholic groups that ordain women. As someone who is not personally called to ordination, but who knows people who've sought ordination through those paths, I'm somewhat ambivalent, and I don't expect you all necessarily to agree, but I would like you to talk about how you see ordination outside of the official institutional structures that are still Catholic.
You mean the delicta graviorum? Those women?
Yeah, I have no problem with individuals doing that, obviously, but I'm curious as to what you think.
Yeah, I think we have to have everybody doing everything. I really do.
Okay.
The laborers are few. The women who are bold enough to either try to struggle within the church and try to, offer the sacrament outside the church. If you're bold enough to want to do that, if you feel called enough, if you have those gifts, do it. To me, it doesn't matter if you're doing it. I don't even know what it means to be not outside the walls of the church, right? I mean, when you have this grand sacramental theology that we have in the Catholic tradition, it's hard to say we're Catholic, this is Catholic, that isn't Catholic. But all of that to say, I think that, it takes both working within and outside to transform the church, because those women will become models for what an inclusive priesthood and small church communities will look like. The women in here are fighting, and if they have that strength to endure what they will endure trying to struggle inside the church, I think it's all a calling from God. I think it's all a desire to celebrate sacraments and to be Eucharist and to feed one another, which is ultimately the thing Jesus called us to do, is to feed one another. And I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way to do that.
Okay.
Can I just...
A slogan. I think they testify that the world doesn't end because of the audience, if you audience.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're just about a 5-minute walk from the Synod Hall. So a question for all of you is, what is one message that you wish could be heard on that floor? If you could bring one point or one emphasis in that room today or throughout the month, what would be your message that you want those bishops to hear?
I would love to see that the bishops would invite called women. Because the title of the Synod is to speak about the vocation of young people in the church and in the world. And I think it's great to speak about vocation, priestly vocation too, but I think we should also take women inside who say, I want to be a priest. And yes, I hope that they hear me. And all the other women who want to be priests.
So I would say, I guess the message I would have to them is that we have to seriously discuss, if there was one issue I would love them to discuss, would be inequality or sexism, but also within the church, not only outside. Because if we are speaking about vocations, about young people, and about young women having vocations in life and in church, this inequality and sexism is something that kills dreams. This is something that damages lives. This is something that forces you to be rational about call that you feel, and calculate and maybe lower your aspirations. And it comes with all kinds of flavors. It may be about just general education. It can be about becoming a theologian. That I went that path. I'm not a theologian practicing because I can very struggling. But it can be about all kinds of issues, priesthood, but also all kinds of vocations for service in the world and in the church. And discussing vocations without putting that up front and saying, well, first of all, you need to be a free person, discerning your call. And if you don't have this freedom of discerning because you're a woman, and the fact that you have a womb in this theology of body determines you and limits your choices, that's where it starts. So this is where we should start this conversation. If the church sees it like that and offers us already a piece of only a part of cake, then we cannot have a peaceful and free conversation about vocations during the Synod. If we are not aware that we are actually doing it, cutting options, limiting options to women, and we do it because of our theology, very strongly so. So if they are not aware about it in the room, and given the quote of John Paul II and theology of the body, probably they are not, and they are not going to speak this way, it's not addressing real issues.
I don't know if you know the theory of the Wide Web, which is according to which the roots of a tree are kind of a second underground tree that sacrifices itself for the one that stands outside. I would like the Father of Synod to know that we are not going to be that underground tree anymore.
I would probably just say to stop making obstacles between God and God's beloved people. You know, that stop denying sacraments. You know, sacraments are not a gift for good behavior. You know, they're a grace of God's presence. You know, I have that experience. I'm denied, a lot of women are denied one sacrament. I'm denied two because I'm queer, right? So I can't get married either. So I really feel this thing about being denied sacraments very strongly. And that goes to your question a bit, Bob, is that there's that solidarity there between the fact that, for me, most of the issues of the church have to do with the church's take on sexuality. You know, its understanding of men and women. And I think that's really ultimately what has to be dismantled, because, you know, queer people are treated unjustly in the church for the same reason women are treated unjustly. It's the same teaching. We're going to get justice together or we're not. Please tell all your gay friends that. It's such an important message. We really are being, we are ostracized for the same reasons. Mm-hmm. But that's, to me, the heart of it, is just stop separating God's beloved people from God, or stop thinking that you can.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions from the audience?
It's not really a question, it's a little bit to follow up on something that Jamie said that I'm a big both and person. I agree, like change happens from all sorts of places. And so we have to somehow, you know, embrace it all. And I always think about this notion of, you know, and I hear this from so many people as well. Oh, you know, let's not do the priesthood because it's, you know, it's defunct. It's a problem. But would we ever apply that logic to any other discipline or career? Mm-hmm. I mean, we go into politics. We want women in politics. When women entered the field as medical doctors, they did change the way medicine was practiced. They didn't need a manifesto. They just brought something new to the work. And when they entered the you know, as police officers, yeah, they do change it because, again, you know, we're socialized differently for sure. A good thing in a lot of cases. But you know, I always think about that logic, and I know people. So like you turn it on and say, would you do that in any other occupation? Or I mean, this isn't anything that's in a different sphere. Mm-hmm. It's how we organize around this idea of how to love each other and figure out what this dream should be for all of us. That just deserves the same sort of scrutiny and struggle, and it'll be messy, but we'll change it.
Yeah, it's going to take time, but yeah, it'll only happen if women begin to be included. Yeah. You know.
Okay, well, I think I want to thank all of you for coming so much. You have filled my heart with hope, and I want you to know how powerful it is to use your voice so close to St. Peter's. And I do trust that they are hearing our message. And after yesterday's protests and today, I know that their message is going to be louder than ever. So thank you for being courageous and fierce women and sharing your truth with us.